I'm John McLeese, and this is Bold Radio. Sometimes in life, you just need some good advice. No one is an expert at absolutely everything. That's why we're proud to present the Bold Radio Expert Series, where we welcome a qualified and experienced individual to offer sound advice on an aspect of running a business. Our guest today is an expert that specializes in the field of economic development. Very pleased to be joined by Greg Dandewich, Senior Vice President of Economic Development Winnipeg. EDW is the lead economic development agency for Winnipeg. Economic Development Winnipeg facilitates investment promotion and attraction, capacity building, tourism development, marketing and communication, and the management of market data. Greg brings his expertise today on the subject of economic development agencies and their role in the community. Data and information is an important element of building and improving on a business model. Business owners will often gather as much information as possible about their target demographics, similar organizations, or market trends when making a decision to invest in a city or invest in Winnipeg. That's what we want to talk to Greg about today. Greg, welcome to the program.
Thanks, John. Happy to be here.
It's great to have you. What resources does EDW make available to businesses to help them source the information they need to make sound business decisions about expanding or setting up in Winnipeg?
Right. Well, John, as you're aware, Economic Development Winnipeg's one of its core competencies is to manage information on the city of Winnipeg, and what we try and do is to identify the key economic indicators through development of a series of profiles. So that allows companies and allows our organization internally to understand what's happening in the market. What is our unemployment rate? Where is there opportunity for more work in terms of dealing with more attraction for talent? How do we manage and understand what's happening within each of our industry sectors? So we develop profiles of each of the 9 industry sectors that act as the underpinning of our economy. And we use that for our own purposes in making good decisions on how we want to do business retention, expansion, attraction. But we also make that available to everybody in the community. And it's quite interesting because we'll see the private sector, we'll see the public sector, we'll see post-secondary institutes tap into that information for them to use for attracting students, as an example, or attracting different types of companies or even staff into Winnipeg as a good place to pursue their career with a particular company that might have a headquarters here or might have a branch operation within Winnipeg.
How does Economic Development Winnipeg use the information it compiles, and what is the ultimate purpose, I guess, of the information?
Yeah, and there's a couple of areas. I mean, number one, as I already mentioned, it's about business retention, expansion.
Sure.
So you need to be able to have that information to communicate with existing companies that are saying, well, maybe we shouldn't expand here. So what we do is we strip away all the critical components that a company needs to look at when it's making its decisions on taxation, on access to employment, on unemployment, on growth of the marketplace. The other thing that we do is we try and make sure that we have as up-to-date information that is really targeting a selection of decision makers, which are called site selectors. And site selectors are effectively they're U.S.-based organizations that do a significant amount of desktop analysis on behalf of their clients to try and identify where their next expansion should take place. And it's a bit of a misnomer. It's not really site selection, it's site deselection. So what they'll do is that we as an organization have no idea who's looking at us in terms of a potential opportunity for a client to expand their operation here. So effectively what we do is we use that information. It's all web driven and enables those site selectors to do that initial scan that they require and then prompt them to send that email or pick up that phone and contact us directly. And then once that's transpired, they've gotten through the first gate of decision making, and now we're having a dialogue, and that allows us to actually enhance our value proposition verbally.
It's a very interesting process in which you're talking about how you go through to kind of be selected or at least be one of the candidates to be considered. What are some of the leading sources of information influencing business development in Winnipeg, just to give our listeners an idea?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there's a couple of things. I mean, number one, we work very closely with a variety of different agencies. For example, at the public sector, the Manitoba Bureau of Statistics, we tap into information from the Conference Board and Stats Canada, which are critically important, and they're data sets. But then you've got to use those data sets and translate into something which is more understandable. So we do these B2B conversations so that we articulate, well, what does it mean to have a low unemployment rate? What does it mean as we increase our population? And so what we do is we translate that down into more of a narrative. So we strip away the hard data, which are important in some decision-making processes, but then we articulate it in such a way that's a little bit more understandable for the company, for the groups that are looking to try and get a better understanding for their clients on what makes Winnipeg tick.
Greg Dandewich is with us, Senior Vice President of Economic Development Winnipeg. We're talking about economic development and the role of trying to attract businesses to Winnipeg. What are some other leading sources of information to influence businesses? You know, talking to industry peers, I would imagine, and those kinds of things?
Correct. I mean, we always have to be able to get some competitive intelligence. And the best way to do that is to speak with the different businesses and our peers. We also work very closely with the post-secondaries, critically important because everything revolves around the access to labor. And when we're dealing with companies, we want to ensure we have the best information in hand to understand what is the pipeline that is coming in from the post-secondaries, both in a technical, from a research, from an engineering perspective. So what you should do is you aggregate all this information, and that allows different groups to be able to tap into the information that we provide to them, so that it helps them make decisions, once again, around are they going to do an expansion? Are they going to stay in this marketplace? And then when we go out externally, how do we actually come up with a compelling rationale to attract them? And it's all based on these different sets of data and information which we manage as an organization.
Economic Development Winnipeg, if we need to know something about where or how to expand in Manitoba or Winnipeg, you go and talk to them. Greg Dandewich, Senior Vice President. He is our expert today on Bolds Radio. Thanks a lot, Greg.